As an anime fan, it's hard to recommend what I watch to people. It all comes from a foreign country, and on top of that, the plots aren't necessarily the easiest sells. For example, I was recently watching this really great show about how humanity has walled itself off in order to survive against an onslaught of giant naked people who look like this. And that's one of the easier ones to recommend. On top of this, there is also your ability to recommend a show. For example, the other evening I was trying to get someone to watch Steins Gate, a psychological thriller where you end up caring for every character, yet you don't know whether any of them are going to be able to survive the mysterious organization that could potentially use time travel to destroy the very fabric of reality. And what did I tell them? Watch Steins Gate, it's really, really good. Praise from Caesar, I know. But these are anime that in the widest picture aren't all that hard to recommend. Instead today, I thought I'd talk about some anime that are indeed hard to suggest to people because they've worked their way into a very specific niche that others are hesitant to follow them into. But all of these ones are worth a watch. So here you go. Here's some anime that just make recommendation that bit harder. I promised I'd talk more about Maiden Abyss this year, and this is what I was hinting at. Maiden Abyss is a genuinely great show and I highly recommend it. Some of you might be scratching your heads a bit because you've seen it and you're wondering, how is this hard to recommend? This literally won Anime of the Year in a mainstream Western award show. And this is absolutely true. But a lot of the people who ended up watching Maiden Abyss simply got there from hearing it's very good, or from accessing any of the aforementioned awarded accolades. But rarely do they get a plot synopsis in there. Because of this, I'm going to give you a few light spoilers on the anime, and maybe you'll see why it isn't the easiest to recommend to friends. On an island, there is a giant hole. Ascending from anywhere inside this hole will cause you damage, and from the third layer onwards, that damage will take the form of bleeding out of every orifice, and believe me, they will show this happening in excessive detail. Our protagonist is Riko, a walking miscarriage who spent their childhood getting stripped naked and beaten in an orphanage. She meets a humanoid robot who we know very little about, apart from the fact they have a working penis. But the world is really pretty, by the way. The background artist's incredibly talented. We then go on to the second season where Reg can become a sleep paralysis demon, but only after Riko blows her dead friend. A lot of the story beats now have an interesting central theme to them: euthanasia. The plot is really intriguing. I can't wait to see where it goes. But of course the average moment in this show is fairly light, with relaxing scenes involving stuff like branding child slaves with a hot poker, anal prolapse, performing live experimentation on a different set of child slaves, forced transmutation into disfigured beasts begging for death, cannibalism, and infanticide. Soundtrack absolutely bangs, by the way. Really top-notch, beautiful stuff. They have watery shits into a toilet made of flesh. As you've probably gauged, Maiden Abyss can be quite something at times. It's not at all an easy watch, and these kinds of things are what turn people off from it. However, these moments do not tarnish the experience. If anything, the show would be worse off without them. The world of Maiden Abyss is a terrifying and brutal one. Part of why it feels so well realized is the graphic detail that it goes into. Getting to the bottom is an impossible task, not only because of the physical obstacles, but also because of the constant fear that these characters must be living in having witnessed such things. And also, when the horror lets up, we can see some of the jaw-dropping beauty on display within this utterly terrifying existence. And you can once again understand the characters' desire to continue on in their seemingly impossible quest. There's something really admirable yet human about how they've witnessed the worst, both of monsters and of fellow explorers down there, but they still have pure intentions in their hearts and do not want to succumb to the abyss. The longer you see of this literal hellhole, the more questions you have, and the longer we spend time with the characters, the more endeared we become to them. The show is uncomfortable, yes, but because it wants you to be. And because it throws all those moments of wonder into even sharper relief. There's a reason that fantasy and horror fans alike love this show. Transitioning to the next one's gonna be really fucking hard now, isn't it? Lucky Star is quite something. If Maiden Abyss is hard to watch because of what's going on, then Lucky Star is the complete opposite, because basically nothing is going on. Now this does fall into the cute girls doing cute things genre, but most apostles of the genre tend to have something more going on with them besides just the cute girls. It's also a cute thing as well. A great example is Girls and Panzer, where not only the girls are cute, but the thing they are doing is also cute, i.e. warfare. But Lucky Star has no such modus operandi. The closest thing I can compare it to is Joshiraku, and even then Joshiraku is what I'd describe as Lucky Star if all the writers were in the process of heroin withdrawal. But if Lucky Star is to be Joshiraku without the heroin withdrawal, what does that leave us with? Well, it's just talking. Occasionally they go somewhere different, but it's just talking. There's a few sketches involving other people as well, but for the most part, if you don't want to watch these 4 characters talking, then you're boned, my dear friend. And while these aren't bad characters, 3 of them are literal archetypes, and as a result, there only seems like so much you can get out of that. But the main draw is the 4th of these characters, Konata. And she is literally me. In this situation comedy, she is all the situations. It's just a series of everyday events spiced up by Konata being a lazy ass when it comes to everything but anime. And it's beautiful. Of course, it isn't afraid to go off the rails when it wants, as the sketches at the end of each episode are great, taking focus away from the girls and onto a meta commentary on the otaku scene. This serves as both a time capsule of the otaku scene in 2008, while also being strangely self-aware. And then you still have some sentimental character moments, which, while they take themselves seriously, don't take themselves so seriously that they start to clash with the tone. There's a reason that there was a time when everyone had watched Lucky Star at some point, and that is because it's an encapsulation of the otaku dream. Nowadays, I don't think as many people have watched it, and I suppose recommending Lucky Star will make me look a bit out of touch. So that's why they use that song. Right, you knew this one was coming. Don't lie. There's only 2 eras on this channel. The one where I didn't shut up about My Hero Academia, and now the one where I don't shut up about the Monogatari series. And let's put it this way, I ain't here to talk about My Hero Academia. The reason the Monogatari series is so hard to recommend is a combination of the reasons for both Maiden Abyss and Lucky Star. Because from a skeptic's perspective, there is both too much and not enough going on. And I'm not even sure I can dispute them on that. It's been almost 3 years since my last Monogatari bender, and I still haven't watched the final season or any of the Kizu Monogatari movies. Ask me what happened in any given arc and I'd struggle to give you an exact recap outside the major characters and events. And yet I'd still call this one of my favourite anime of all time. Definitely is not for everyone. Some folks are going to be turned away by the sexual moments, but the people who came for the sexual moments will be turned away because most of the events of this show are just, you guessed it, talking. And this is where my advice for enjoying Monogatari comes in. Turn one part of your brain off, and another on. Or, to shorten this mantra, get turned on to enjoy Monogatari. Okay, that one doesn't work quite as well. In all seriousness, Monogatari is really hard to recommend just because of how downright weird it can be. But that's also the main reason that I recommend it. Monogatari is what happens when you're forced to adapt an already eccentric light novel into a medium that requires a visual aspect as well, and you give it to a director who never learnt the definition of continuous shot. Monogatari is something you will rarely experience in anime, let alone anywhere else. Were it to come out today, Western distribution companies would either just censor it or just outright not bother to import it because of how hard it is to translate. It's like if you got a Murakami book, took out all the bits that weren't about ghost sex or sex with ghosts, and then filled in the rest of it with a book of tongue twisters, and somehow you ended up with a cast of fascinating characters. There's quite a few anime like it, but none of them are as unapologetically, for lack of a better word, untamed as Monogatari is, and it's all the better for that reason. The fact it's so hard to recommend speaks to its originality, and the only way you're ever going to understand that is by watching it yourself. Do yourself a favour. Although, look up a watch order first, that shit is complicated. So to conclude, the Monogatari series is like both The Shawshank Redemption and my dick. It's really, really good. I fucking hope you've watched John LaJoy, otherwise that last reference is going to seem like a really weird way to end this video.